I'd like to hear you about the evolving role of boards of directors, which they seem to me to be increasingly on the spotlight, and expectations on boards look sometimes exaggerated, like almost an impossible job. Specifically, how do you perceive the evolving relationship between boards and CEOs? Are boards more likely to help or hinder strategy and the rest?
Yeah, I shake my head, not for the question. It's an awesome question. It's just I'm so discouraged about boards. So the general theory of board is they're in some sense to fix the principal agent problem, right? So Mike Jensen identified that. Well, managers are imperfect agents. They have self-interest and won't necessarily do things aligned with the shareholders, right? And so here's our solution. We're going to create this thing called the board, which will ensure that management behaves in ways that's consistent with the interests of shareholders, right? Great theory. Except, what are boards? Are they principals? Oh, no, they're not. What must they be? Oh, agents. Okay, then, so let me get this straight. To solve the principal agent problem between shareholders and management, we're going to install another layer of agents and assume that they're going to behave entirely differently than the agents that we're trying to discipline in the first place. So it's just stupid theory, right? Like it's nonsensical, illogical. And so all you've done is added another layer of agents. Then you have to ask the question, what would cause somebody, right? Last time I checked, we don't have press gangs racing around the streets, rounding up executives and forcing them at gunpoint to be board members, right? I don't think. Have you seen that? I haven't. Generally speaking, they decide on their own that they're going to be a board member when invited to be it. So, what would cause somebody to decide to be a board member? Decide to spend a bunch of time being a board member? Well, there's a bunch of answers. They could say, wow, the compensation is really attractive, right? What are they inclined to do if they find the compensation to be really attractive? Not do anything that would possibly jeopardize their board seat. What if they say, no, I'd like to be on that board because it's really prestigious. Improves my personal prestige. What are they going to do in board meetings? Make sure they don't do anything to jeopardize that. Or they could say, it's a nice social environment, right? Where I get to make friends with all these other people who are like-minded and whatever. What are you going to do on the board? Make sure you don't jeopardize the social environment. How about, oh, this is my opportunity to learn all about pharma. I think pharma is interesting. I don't know a thing about pharma. This is my opportunity to learn. And that's going to be valuable to shareholders, management, in what way? Right? The only reason for being on a board that's good for humanity is if you believe that democratic capitalism is underpinned by public companies that use the resources well, and this is public service. Not many directors believe that. Hence, they're mainly into being kind of amenable, friendly, with others. Now, I would say if you are on a board, and some of you are on boards, is think carefully about what your role really is, because it isn't thought through kind of enough, and that's why. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I have said if you blew up the boards of the S&P 500, the publicly traded board members of the S&P 500, just blew them all up, corporate performance would improve, not fall. That doesn't mean that some boards don't do a really great job, but it's a problem where we've used facile theory to say what will happen without really asking by what mechanism will the thing we'd like to have happen really happen. And it's one of the things that, like, I think when we wake up in 2050, or 2050, I should say, we'll be looking back at the period 1935 or 40 to 2025 or 30 as the period where we were so idiotic that we thought the widely held publicly traded company was the best form of corporate organization. We're going to say, what were we thinking? It just doesn't work, right? And we're going to have a return, in my view, and we are already in Silicon Valley. We have already returned to this, where of the 20s and 30s in the U.S. at least 20s and 30s, where you had sort of semi-public companies. You had John D. Rockefeller owning 70% of Standard Oil and saying, "Yeah, if you want to come along for the ride, go ahead, but I'm not listening to you. I've got more at stake by a long shot than you do, so just shut up and be along for the ride, and I don't need a board of directors." We're going to have more of that, and that's what Google and many of the other companies set themselves up to. It's sort of like, we'll give the capital markets the back of our hand, shut up, we're in charge, etc. We're just going to have more of that, because the widely held publicly traded company is no longer an advantage.
Wow,
that's probably more than you wanted on that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean,
what the hell?
Brilliant. It's your reflection on this, Professor Martin, has been particularly enlightening. We are in the middle of these discussions here in Brazil. We are kind of, revising what is the role of the board, because it's not predict and control anymore, and so. What's the point, and it's so rich, everything that you said.
Well, on that front, my view is that we should focus on chairs, right? I think chairs of boards of publicly traded companies should be treated as we treat judges in the U.S. Right? In the U.S., kind of judges are public servants, right? In a kind of a moral sense, they could make more money by far being kind of a corporate lawyer or a litigator or anything compared to the low amount of money they make as a judge. But if you ask most of them, why do you want to be a judge? Most of them would say, the law and upholding the law is the cornerstone, the foundation of American democracy, and I want to serve in that capacity for the betterment of my country. So they see themselves as public servants in the best way, not public servants in the way of, well, they're got a bureaucratic job that they don't have to work hard at it. True public servants. And I believe, because of the impact chairs have on the way the board functions and operates, that what we've got to do is inculcate a notion that they are the key public servants guarding capitalism and the functioning of capitalism in our economy, and they should be revered and lauded for that, because I think that's a smaller number, right? Like if you had 50 great chairs of the 50 biggest publicly traded companies in Brazil that really saw their job as public service of the highest order, I think you'd have accomplished the 80 for the 20, if you will, and probably the chairs of the smaller companies would aspire to be like the chairs of the big companies. So that's been my view of it. Let's start there and create a sea change.